Okay, hi, my name's Kevin. I am a student in the wellness program and I'm a pharmacy student. So I tried to figure out how to upload a audio file on YouTube, but it asked me to upload a video as well. So I just decided I might as well just make a video and just have the audio part as the podcast. And I also couldn't really figure out how to do the just only an audio file and how to be able to link it to the submission. So here it goes. Basically, the prompt for this week's assignment was to look at the trans theoretical model and look at a single change that we could have added to using the trans theoretical model basically to apply a change to our lives. And for instance, I had to do a little bit of thinking about my changes or what I could apply to the trans theoretical model and where I would be in the model for this change. So for me, an area that I actually decided to fixate on, especially recently, would be my dietary habits. Normally, I eat generally pretty healthy, and I generally follow like the ideas of Michael Greger, who advocates for like a whole food plant-based diet. So I don't eat any animal products and try to eat as minimally processed foods as possible. But something that I do notice is that when processed foods become available, or I'm a little bit busier with school or a little bit more constrained in my time, I consume a lot of processed foods. So, for instance, especially since exams have been around, I've been eating a lot of junk food recently. It wouldn't be any animal products, but I would be eating like potato chips, French fries. If they were laying around, I would eat them. And to be honest, like I knew that these foods would definitely not be good for me. And for a whole foods plant-based diet, there's two components to it. It's not necessarily just abstaining from animal products such as like meat, eggs, dairy, and the like, but it's also eating whole foods as much as possible. So when it comes to a whole food, like an example would be I would eat something in the most natural form. So if it would either come out from the ground or from a vine or a branch. So for instance, a tomato would be a whole food, but ketchup would not be because ketchup is processed. And as I said, especially now since school has really picked up and I had a lot of exams recently, I've been eating a lot of processed foods, and I do know that it's definitely not good for my health and well-being. So this is the change that I decided to apply the trans theoretical model to examine and to basically uh, basically catalyze a change within myself because I know that in terms of long-term health and longevity for preventing diseases, eating processed foods are definitely not going to be beneficial or resourceful towards preventing diseases. So it's definitely something I want to change. And so, for instance, I something else I also actually did notice was that a lot of the times I would eat. I would use a lot of condiments and I would use a lot of seasonings with my food. I don't necessarily think seasonings are bad, but a lot of them would contain salt, like soy sauce, and definitely I think we already consume quite enough sodium from our day-to-day diet, so the less the better, to be honest. So in terms of a little bit of background, I basically stumbled across a lot of nutritional philosophy a few years ago. So I began to follow the work of Michael Greger and look at concepts such as the blue zones. And a lot of these societies and cultures that have the lowest rates of chronic diseases that now afflict the standard Americans, they all generally followed a whole foods plant-based diet where they had very minimal animal products and generally ate very unprocessed foods, and they might not even know honestly what processed foods are. So when it comes to the trans theoretical model in relationship to this behavior of trying to eat more whole foods that are unprocessed, when examining the stages, the first stage is the pre-contemplation stage, and I would say that I'm actually past the stage already because I have put in a lot of groundwork a few years ago, researching, spending a lot of time. Probably spent over 100 hours looking at nutritional videos, to be honest, and definitely something I'm very into and passionate about. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I know all and that I cannot learn more. So when it comes to the pre-contemplation stage, if I look at doing more research, I can garner more positive reasons as to why I would want to change, and that would help me facilitate the change. When it comes to, I think I'm at the contemplation stage where I intend to begin this behavior within the next 6 months. To be honest, I think once the exams are over, which will be a few more days, then I will definitely adhere to these ideas. And basically, I'm pretty aware of the pros and cons at this stage. So for the preparation stage, like I said, that would be within the next couple days, and I think that's something that would help me is to keep a calendar of what foods that I consume. And to be honest, like it's not necessarily I don't necessarily know that if I can eliminate all processed foods because to be honest, that's I don't know. I think it's definitely possible, but it's very difficult. But I think if anything, I'm trying to fixate on fried foods, especially or like such as potato chips, such as French fries, tater tots. I have a huge I don't know whatever the opposite of a sweet tooth is for salty and fried foods that I really have an affection for that, and that's definitely something that I need to change. So I think something that I would like to implement in terms of the preparation stage would be to talk to my close friends and roommates about how the ideas that I want to implement in terms of dietary habits and changes, and especially people who I trust. And I mean, to be honest, I don't necessarily expect this to be easy, and I don't necessarily expect this to be done at once or permanent. It's just that's something I want to implement and try. Um, so in terms of stage four or the action step, I think that something that would help me quite a bit is to substitute the foods that I would be eating that are normally fried and processed foods with unprocessed foods. So, for instance, instead of eating chips, I could eat carrots and hummus. I could eat celery and peanut butter. I can eat some fruits, some nuts. All of those things, to be honest, I think are really great ways to help. And I think something that also helps is that I am surrounded by them a lot of times, and they're really, really accessible because I am on campus, and there's a lot of restaurants on the area, and a lot of those foods are very, very cheap. And I think definitely something that I've done in the past that will help would either be to set a budget, or I would just leave my cards at home, to be honest, and I, which would allow me to have no choice but to not spend money. And then when it comes to stage five or the maintenance stage, I think it's difficult, especially around exam times, but I need to be more vigilant. And something that's helped me quite often is to always keep snacks with me so that I am not necessarily tempted in the same way, or before I leave the house to make sure that I'm fed with a nice meal. Because when I begin to get hungry, then I start reaching for the things that are really close and available. And sometimes even at work, for instance, there are like cheap processed snacks that are like such as potato chips and the like, and I definitely know that they're not good for me. So definitely in order to maintain, I would definitely want to keep full before I leave the house, and always keep snacks with me. And in terms of the relapse stage, I think that this isn't. I don't know if I would necessarily call this relapsing, but I think if I can limit my junk food intake to once a week, I think that'd be the ideal situation. Just for a single meal a week or just one time a week, I would consume them. In terms of relapse, I would consider anything over that, especially over 3 times a week. I would say that's abnormal, and that's a relapse. So I think it's definitely something that would be difficult and challenging. But I think I have to basically allow my taste buds to change, and then implement these ideas of having snacks with me, keeping well fed, keeping a budget, or leaving my cars at home, and telling my roommates, my friends, my family about this change that I want to make. And I think that from then on, I think developing this discipline and character habit and allowing my taste buds to change, that will naturally allow me to stay away from these more processed foods. Because I think that once you begin to eat them, I think that you become addicted in a way towards them, and you get a taste for them. But I think after a while, after a few weeks, your taste buds change. So I think the relapse cycle, I think anything over 3 times a week. But in terms of the trans-theoretical model, I think it's a very, very great model. And I think that something that I would definitely like to apply it to would be to minimize my consumption of processed foods, especially fried foods, salty foods. And I think at this point now, I'm on stage two, the contemplation stage, and the preparation stage will be in a few days once my exams are over. Because, like I said, once around exam time, I don't really eat very healthy, because a lot of times I eat what I can because I'm studying quite a bit. Thank you very much.